Okay, good morning. Today is Wednesday, the 13th day of Kislev. Tonight, of course, the 14th day of Kislev, we celebrate the Rebbe's wedding anniversary, Big Yom Tov in Lubavitch. Kislev in general has a lot of holidays. And the Rebbe, of course, the Rebbe mentioned that this day is the day that connected me and you. Rebbe was the son-in-law of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and the wedding of the Rebbe with the daughter of the Frierdiker Rebbe said the Rebbe connected the Rebbe with us. And we're getting ready for Yutas Kislev, the big celebration of the Alter Rebbe, next week. And this is when we finish the Tanya and we begin the Tanya again. So keep this in mind. This is an opportunity to tell your friends and invite more people and yourself to join and to rededicate yourself to the study of the daily Tanya, as we will begin again next Monday, Bezrat Hashem, next Tuesday. So today we're going to learn the essay, the fifth essay of the last part of the Tanya. And as we mentioned before, the last part of the Tanya are different essays where the Alter Rebbe clarifies many things in the Kabbalah, and many things that he brought in different places. And we find a lot of, some things are very deep to understand, some things we can understand and appreciate. And today we're going to learn about something very interesting. The Alter Rebbe explains how everything what we do, everything what we study, we are here to elevate and purify this world. And it will explain why certain things that makes no sense, certain teachings that we study, for example. When we study things, some things are totally irrelevant, and the probability of them happening are close to zero. And yet we involve ourselves in studying those parts of Torah. We know when it comes to regular civil law, no one will study civil law unless you intend to become a lawyer or to become a judge. You don't just waste your time to study laws that is not applicable. But yet when it comes to Torah, every part of Torah you study, even if it's not relevant at all, it has a purpose. And what is that purpose? So that the Alter Rebbe spoke about it in the last essay, in essay 4 a little bit, and here clarifies more. And what we mentioned before is what we do through the mitzvahs and through the Torah is, like we said, refining the world. There's godly sparks in the world that animates the world, and we need to refine them. When we do a mitzvah, we bring godliness into this world, into these physical objects. And the same things when we study the laws that talk about those mitzvahs. But then what about the mitzvahs when we study laws that have no relevance whatsoever? It seems that they have no relevance. So in the last chapter, the last essay, the Alter Rebbe explained that what this accomplishes is bringing godliness down, because every halacha, every law is rooted in the supreme godly wisdom. And therefore, when you study the godly wisdom, you're connected and you draw down this godly wisdom. But does it really have an effect on the world itself? Studying such laws? This is what the Alter Rebbe brings in this essay, that yes, even in this world, there is also an effect. And what he's going to explain is that everything in this world has a root in the spiritual world. And even things that are not completely revealed here, they may have an existence in a higher realm. And we'll explain this as we get along. By us studying those laws, we connect with those source, with the roots of the with the roots of the energy of what even of objects of this that is in this world, and even things that did not yet come into this world. We have the ability to affect them, and when we study them and we learn them as the laws of the Torah, we infuse the godly energy, and thereby we remove the other side, the sides of the evil, to nourish from those forces. That's, in short, what Alter Rebbe is going to explain. So let's see it inside. Says the Alter Rebbe. ולהבין פרטי הלכות דלהשכיח הכלל, let us understand how this applies to the details of the laws that never occur at all. ואפשר שלא היו מעולם במציאות, and possibly never actually existed. ומכל שכן שלא היו לעשות לווי, and certainly will not come to pass in the time to come, meaning there are certain laws of prohibitions that they are today. When Mashiach comes, those prohibitions certainly will not have any relevance because people will be pure. But there's certain laws that even today have no chance to come into action. For example, and it brings an example, for example, the detailed laws of pigul and the like. So we explained the laws of pigul is the laws of when you a Cohen and the priest in the temple offers a sacrifice. So there is specific laws. The sacrifice, when you bring it up, when you offer it, there is a window of time when the different parts needs to be done, sprinkling the blood, and when the meat of the sacrifice can be eaten, and so on. So the law says that if the Kohen who brings the offering, and he has while he's doing the work, he has a thought that he's going to sprinkle the blood outside of the window of the due date, or that meat would be eaten later after the time expired, so that disqualifies the whole sacrifice, and if a person eats from that, is liable, punishable by death from above, and that is called pigul. So now, is this something that in reality, is this something that makes sense that will happen? A Kohen who's standing and serving Hashem will have a thought that he's going to eat the carbon outside of the time. That's most likely it's never going to happen. But yet we learn those laws. And what is the effect of learning these laws? Says the Alter Rebbe as follows: In a moda zois shekol isur sheba'olam. It is known that every prohibited thing in the world, has a source and a root of life in the klipos. Every prohibition has a root in the klipos, in the shells, in the forces of impurity. This is why even back in the days they had the magic, and they had all kind of witchcraft, and they had the idol worship, and they were able to nourish by doing those things from the evil sources. So the evil sources, they nourish from these places. So every prohibition has a root in the spiritual world. Otherwise, it could not exist in this world without the flow from above, without receiving vitality from a spiritual source. Now, when we're talking about prohibition, says the Alter Rebbe, even one who crinkles his hair and the like. What does it mean, one who crinkles his hair? There's no prohibition of crinkling the hair, making yourself looking beautiful looking in the mirror. However, when a person is into making the mirror and playing with the hair, looking good, what is he doing it for? if he's doing it just to go nice, go out there and feel good and let that people look at himself and how beautiful he is, how handsome he is, there is a selfish thing in this other than godly. So is it a prohibition? No, it's not a prohibition. But is it really godly? Yes, of course, you can use it in godly ways. If you're going to go out for a date and and you're going to want to get married, and you have to look good, and you have to make yourself look good, and so on. Or otherwise, you're going to approach people. You want to talk to people about Yiddishkeit, about Judaism. You want to have look good. But that in of itself, if there's a selfish thing there, there's a little non-godly thing in there, which the Torah says, by the way, about Yosef HaTzadik. Joseph, the holy tzaddik, obviously we cannot understand, he's in a high level, but the Torah says that he was, when he was in Egypt, he was playing with his hair, he was very handsome. All the people in Egypt, they looked at him, they couldn't take their eyes off him, and Potiphar wanted to seduce him. So the Torah says that because he was playing with his hair, that's why Hashem made it that Potiphar should try to seduce him. So, in any case, what he's saying that even such a thing, like playing with the hair, crinkling the hair, which is not a prohibition, but it's something that may not be purely holy. So that energy of doing this comes, where is it coming from? It comes from the chambers of the klippos. It says, he receives his life force at that moment from the spiritual chambers of the klippos, as explained in the Zohar. And therefore, it says, even the particular prohibitions that never became practical issues in this physical world, nevertheless, mikol makayim shaloshei chayusam and b'metzias v'poel mamash b'yicholos haklippos. Nevertheless, still the roots of their life force, they do actually exist in the spiritual chambers of the klippos. Sometimes reality is not just what you see. Some people have illusions. In the middle of the night, you have fears of things that happens and never really happened, but they exist in a certain world. So the reality that is not exist in this world, it may exist in a higher world. And therefore we need to eliminate the energy from not only from the physical existence in this world, but we need to eliminate also from the higher world. How do you do this? So this is what we're going to explain. It says, and even the particular instances that possibly never did and never will actually occur. It's possible that some things will never occur. Kegoin, for example, tos ushgogos, shetoro v'koro l'chi asir v'kai gavnen. For example, errors and unwitting misdeeds, like when tithing, erroneously calling the 9th sheep the 10th and the like. What does that mean? We know when you give the tithing, there's the laws of the Maisa Behemoth, tithing the animals. That's a special way of tithing it. How do you do it? You take the animals and make a very narrow path, and you let out the animals one by one, and you count the animals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then the 9th one you paint with a red mark, and you know that this animal, this becomes holy. There was once a Rav in Kfar Chabad, I once mentioned the story, that it says why there was he had a person that he was trying to get to donate, a person that had some money, and they tried to get him donate a nice amount, and that guy wasn't easily convinced. So he told him this law, and he says to him, why does the Torah say to tithe the animals like this? Why can't you just make a general account of how many oxen you have, how many sheep you have? Let's say you have 10,000 sheep, so you give 1,000 for charity, for Hashem. Why do you have to count them one by one? And I told them and explained to them that when you count like this, what do? What happens then? You count and you say, you let the animals out one by one and say, 1, this is one God gave for me. 2, this is God gave for me. 3, this is for me. 4 and 5, and finally came the 10th. Okay, the 10th is for God. Then it becomes easier to give when you realize that everything until then is yours. In any case, so the law says there, what happens if a person by mistake called the 9th one, he said 10, and the 11th, he said 10. Then there's laws about it, and they say that the laws, all of them become kodesh, become holy. And this is something that is a mistake. Okay? And it's possible that never will happen. It's very unlikely that this will happen. Because, why would a person call the 9th 10 and the 10th 10 and the 11th 10? It doesn't make sense. It's almost impossible to have. Yet there is a law about it. Not only that, there's also, here is a situation that this is something that a person does wrong, but it's impossible for the person to do it unintentionally. I'm sorry, it's impossible to do it intentionally. When they say when a person does makes a mistake, he makes it does something, a prohibition unintentionally. The Torah says you still have to be forgiven. Why? Because if a person would be very, very careful and very mindful about doing the things right, chances are that he would not make a mistake. When a person is not very careful, not very mindful, so that leads to mistakes. But in a case like this is something that it's impossible to do intentionally, because intentionally you cannot count 9 to 10. If you do, that doesn't mean anything. That is an occurrence that can only occur when a person does unintentional. That's what Alter Rebbe says. The kind of eventuality that cannot be deliberate and thereby cause a klippe to light upon it. Possibly in these circumstances, it does not exist in the chambers of klippes, meaning the source of this action. So it says the Alter Rebbe here that it's possible that it doesn't exist in the chambers of klippe, and that Tzemach Tzedek, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, he makes a note and he says, what does it mean when he says that it's possible that it's not in the chambers of klippe? He explains because the unintentional, inadvertent sins, they're possible that they come from the shell of noga, which is a neutral shell which has both good and bad. That's what he says over here. Note, incident with the Tzemach Tzedek of blessed memory. It appears to me, says the Tzemach Tzedek, that the Alter Rebbe uses the word possibly, implying uncertainty, because unwitting errors derive from noga. It may therefore be said that their origin is in the chambers of noga. That's what it said. Nearly mashikosov yuchaliyas almele brirele and mushum shashgoges bois minoigam ken yesh loimer yesh lem shirish beicholes noiga. Mikol mokem, nevertheless, however, in any event, what we said, al kol ponim yeshnoi b'metzius lehavdil b'chochma yilo shenispashto b'prat zeh l'Moshe Rabbeinu olav Hashanah misinai. Nevertheless, even such cases that is almost impossible that it should occur, they have an existence in the higher worlds. So in any event, it does exist. If not in klippes, then at least keeping in mind the distinction between the sacred and the profane. So that still exists, nevertheless, in the supreme wisdom that issued and descended in this detail to Moses at Sinai. Now, when Moshe Rabbeinu was told this detail about this particular law, So it exists there in the spiritual sense. As in the expression, whatever teaching any seasoned student will one day innovate was taught to Moses at Sinai. And likewise, all the detailed queries of Rabbi Yirmiyah, who posed so many hypothetical possibilities that he was escorted from the house of study. As the Gemara states, the Gemara says over there, gives an example. Rabbi Yirmiyah, he was a person who was a tzaddik, a sage that used to pose all kind of questions, hypotheticals. One of them was an example when there's a law about when you have birds, when you find birds outside and there is a birdhouse next to it. So obviously in that case that the law says that you're not allowed to touch this. It belongs to the owner of this birdhouse. But however, the Gemara says that if the bird is outside of 50 cubits, which is about 75 feet, then if it's outside of that area, then it's fine as keepers. You can take it. It doesn't belong to the owner of the birdhouse. So Rabbi Yirmiyah comes with a hypothetical and he asks a question: what if you find a bird with one leg inside the 50 cubits and one leg outside of the 50 cubits? And they said, you're too much, and they sent them out of the yeshiva. So things like that are hypotheticals that possibly will never occur. And the details, queries such as if she wrapped him in chapter 4 of Chulin. There is a different situation who talks about the laws of the firstborn animal. If the animal is a male and it comes out of the womb of the mother, it becomes considered a holy animal. They have specific laws about it. And the Gemara says, what happens if the animal was wrapped? Now, what does it mean was wrapped? Some say that as the mother delivered the baby, the person wrapped the animal in a way that it never touched the womb. And another explanation is that it's a situation that there was gave birth to both a male and a female together, and the female wrapped the male in a way that the male doesn't touch the womb. This is a situation that certainly is a hypothetical that probably will never happen. Nevertheless, this is part of the law, and we study it. Says the Alter Rebbe, we still study it. Why? Because the extension of the supreme wisdom that is vested in the laws of the Torah, is infinite. Since the infinite is actually clothed in it, and every particular of the law is a gate drawn from the supreme wisdom, the Yosad Bata Melubashba, which founded the daughter and clothed in it. The daughter refers to the Malchus, the level of the royalty, and so on. And from Malchus, from the Chachma is drawn and invested in Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya, the three lower worlds. And it is known. It is known that the nurture of the klipos, the shells, the other sides, they derive from the hint part of the 10 spheres of holiness, like from the back, just like you give something from the back to someone that you don't really want to give. So the same thing, the klipos, they nourish from the back. And more precisely from the garments of the 10 spheres of the Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. And yet more precisely, they derive the nurture from the garments of Yetzira and Asiya that are intermingled with klipos, because the lower worlds, they are already intermingled with the bad and good as well. For as is known, their nurture derives from the state of garments. Now, what are we to do? What is our job to do? Our job is to remove this nourishment from the evil. How do we do it? Through studying those laws, whether by speech or by thought. That's what Alter Rebbe explains. And through the study of the laws in speech and in thought, they become separated and distinct from the sacred. Thus, it is stated in Tikkunim and the Zohar and Raimemne to separate, etc. That the klippos, to separate the klippos from holiness through Torah study. This accords with what is known concerning the teachings of our sages in answer to the prophet's query, why was the land destroyed? And it says, for they did not recite the blessing before Torah study. The idea of reciting the blessing, you say, what do you say? Baruchu et Hashem Amvorach. Say, Baruch ata Hashem, blessed are you Hashem. The word Baruch means drawing down. That when you study the Torah, you want to have this Torah to draw down the godliness, the holiness. And by drawing down the holiness, this separates the nourishment of the evil side from the sources. This separation is effected by drawing down the infinite light into the supreme wisdom, clothed in them, in the laws of the Torah, you have the supreme wisdom. And through Chachma, they are sorted out through the infinite light that is within it. It's like a disinfectant. The light that is so powerful, the infinite light, disinfects the nourishment of the evil. Says this light is drawn into the supreme wisdom by the supernal likeness of man, who is also occupied with these laws above. Because when a man studies Torah below, his source above engages in Torah study as well. So you're not alone. When you study Torah, you have your neshama is also studying Torah. And this, the drawing down from above in its source, in nukva of za of Bria Yitzira Nasiya. This is the nukva is the malchus of za of the world of Bria Yitzira and Nasiya. But say Yuvan Chiyuv Kol Nefesh Ruach Neshama Lashlim Kol Latayag Machshav Diber Ma'aseh. He says, thus we can understand the requirement that every nefesh, ruach and neshama, every human being, every Jew, it fulfills all 613 commandments in thought, speech, and deed. Shein Pratei Halachos, meaning the details of the laws, where thought and speech refers to the study of all these details. They, the nefesh, ruach, and neshama, that failed to complete a previous mission in this world, they must be reincarnated to fulfill the Torah in its simple meaning, allusions, homiletics, and secrets. Every part of the Torah needs to be done by every single neshama, because that's the mission that every neshama has. And why? As he says, in order to sort out and refine all that pertains to them from among the 288 sparks that constitute the complete structure of man. Tayag, Pchines, Klolius, and Proteus, with the 613 categories, general and particular, that relate to each soul. So that's what we have the mission today. But what's going to be when Mashiach comes? When Mashiach comes, all of the evil is going to be separated. But we'll have the 613 mitzvahs. What will be their purpose then? Says the Alter Rebbe that then the purpose will be to elevate everything, because everything has a source in the higher world, and the purpose is to sweeten the mitzvahs, the positive things, with the infinite power that the prohibitions have. Says the Alter Rebbe, but in the time to come, when the refinement is culminated, then the study of the Torah will be in the form of do good alone, and no longer in order to separate good from evil. Yes, of course, we'll have all the mitzvahs, but the function of these mitzvahs will be to bring more good. Its purpose will be to elevate the nefesh ruach neshama ever and infinitely higher. And also with regard to the study of the 365 prohibitions, to elevate them to their source, the holy attributes of the severity. Because severity has also very high source. And to sweeten them through the attributes of kindness that are in the 248 positive commandments, and to fuse them, the attributes of severity, with the attributes of kindness. So the entire Torah is thus eternal in general and in detail. For even the individual laws of the 365 prohibitions are branches of the Torah's general statements. And all of them have a source above in the 5 holy attributes of severity. Just as the 365 prohibitions themselves, as they are above in the state of blood that animates the organs of the vessels of Zah. So this is the end of the shiur. What the bottom line is, what the Alter Rebbe explains here, that there's no such thing as a mitzvah or of something you do which with for the wrong reasons, and every mitzvah has a purpose. Yom Yom it says the Frierdiker writes person should always constantly recite verses of Torah, Mishnah, Tanya when you walk in the street to purify the air. And what does it mean to purify the air? Because every time you study something, you study Torah, the words of Torah that you study, that you think, it does have an effect that purifies the air, purifies the world. Because even things that seem to be not relevant, yet they do have an effect. It's like the butterfly effect. You do a little purification here, and it goes on to the entire world. So, thank you for joining, and Be'ezrat Hashem will continue tomorrow. All the best. Be well.